I'm not gonna lie, I'm actually really surprised that the sequel for Seven Deadly Sins isn't starring any of the main characters' offspring. That's one of the things I actually assumed was a given. I just didn't know who it was. But now I'm wondering if it's gonna be like, is he a member of this main cast, and the other kids are gonna be, the other four horsemen, or how exactly this is gonna go? Because if this dude Percival is not one of the four horsemen, at least anything from like what we know of at the very start of the chapter, then who is? Like, why is it called that? I assumed that the four horsemen were going to be like the main cast, but I mean, there's still a lot of mystery to this. We actually didn't get nearly, I'd say, enough compared to most first chapters in terms of the large scale content. One of the things about that is because this is a continuation. There's a lot of stuff that obviously doesn't need to get shown or really need to get talked about because it already has pre-existing stuff. Like anything about King Arthur, so we don't need to know anything about that until we decide to get to the point of like, oh, well, how is he doing post time skip or whatever? I think it was like 16 years, unless it's further than that, or Arthur has maybe been like on the like full seat of like his new empire in like a shorter span of time, and maybe these are like the start of some of these events that relate to Percival happened before the end, like somewhere before the end of Seven Sins, because I don't remember off the top of my head if there was a stated time skip by the end, or if it's just one of those things where it's like, okay, we have time skip, and now we're actually getting information on the level of the skip that happened and kind of like everything generally in terms of how things progressed after the end. I'm just looking right now. I was just pulling up the last chapter because I don't remember if it stated a direct unit of time. But I was really happy in this chapter to see like I mean just the general art. Like I like the Kaba's art. I like his character designs. They're pretty interesting right off the bat. The main character though, I'm very confused on the fact that he's 16, but he's this small and he's very childlike. And like the weird thing is in Nakaba's, I don't actually know how many total series is. I know he did was it Congo Bancho, and then he did Seven Deadly Sins. As now he's doing this. But in the first series, like the main character, it was kind of more like something like JoJo or Toriko, or like the main character is just this gigantic jack dude. And even though I think he was like 16, I can't remember the exact age, but he was like 16 or something. But he was, he looked like he was like some 30-year-old bodybuilder or something, that kind of style. And then he did Meliodas, and it was like, oh, he's doing the opposite. He's doing this adult guy, but he's very small, and he's still really powerful, but he looks young. And this Percival guy, like they mentioned that he's 16. I would have guessed he was like 10. So clearly there is going to be some form of special reason why he's either aging slowly or he is just I don't know, just short. I feel like there has to be reason because if he was just short, that'd be one thing, but he looks really young, and he doesn't seem like it doesn't seem like he's really gone out and done anything, so there has to be a reason why he's sheltered. They do mention in the chapter that his grandfather hasn't really told him everything, and when he says like, "Oh, you're 16," it's like, and then they say like, "Oh, he's disappeared from the kingdom 16 years ago." So it has to have some form of specific. Okay, what's special about the main character that this guy had to get out of there? My guess is it was maybe he. I mean, I assume he's one of the four horsemen. He's going to become one of the four horsemen, and then it's like, oh well, they had this prophecy or something, or something or another, and he had to take away this kid in order to get away from the danger, or just in like the straight idea of there's something wrong with his dad, because the knight that shows up, obviously, like I'm just gonna go all over the chapter, and we did get like beforehand the picture of like the knight in the boat sailing across the clouds. I thought that was really cool, and then just the general stuff mentioned, like in Arthurian lore, like like the Lady of the Lake and stuff. But this guy Ironsides, they call him, is actually Percival's father, and so I'm wondering, did he take Percival away because of the danger that it presented, like when his dad, I guess, like turned on Arthur? I don't know. Like, there's so many questions to have because it feels like if you were reading the manga and there's just like a big time skip, and it's like, oh well, crap, we got to figure out what all these characters did. after the point of whenever the previous time skip was, but it's from a different main cast. It's really weird because it's not like Fairy Tail 100 Years Quest where it picks up just like right where chapter 545 left off. It's way in the future. It's not like JoJo where it's like a different part, and for the most part I know that some of them, like I've only read through one through three, so I don't know really a whole lot out of everything beyond that. But I think four I believe is still in the same timeline, and I think five too. I have no idea for sure, but it's kind of like, it's not even like that where you're like, okay, it's in the events of the story but way later. But sometimes the events of the previous ones don't really even have nearly as much ties as like this, because this is again like a direct sequel, right? But it's a post time skip. Oh, all this stuff has happened. Who knows what exactly is going on with any of these previous characters? But it's also from a different character's perspective, and the whole different main character, and not Meliodas or anybody Meliodas adjacent. So it's gonna be a while until I imagine we see Lazarus. Actually, I think I think an easy way to compare it, it's kind of like Legend of Korra, except if we got like knowledge of the time skip, and then it decided to just sideline a lot of the answers for a long time. I know we did get actually a lot of stuff that we had to wait till like the very end, like seeing Toph and stuff. So I guess actually that's probably one of the better series to compare it to in terms of like the same vibes of a sequel, just because you had all these, you're just wondering what happened to all these other characters, and you know that the events of the previous story is are going to be tied to this one, but how loosely while doing its own thing. It's really weird, but again, I like it. I think this is a really a pretty fair first chapter. Nothing amazing, but nothing like, it wasn't bad. Like, it was definitely like if I had to gauge it, I'd give it easily at least a 7 out of 10, probably like an 8. Just because I liked the main character at the beginning. I really like the art. I think the art, it's just another good example of Nakaba's skill at just making a display. Like when he's got like the scenes of like just Percival running around. I can't tell though if it's showing off speed or its energy, because that's obviously one of the things that's always, it's always present when you have like these battle series. The first chapter, you're finding out a little bit about the main character's abilities and their powers and stuff. I was actually really surprised we didn't get anything on like what the MC's like, what Percival's whole like moveset is going to be, whatever his main character power is going to be. Like the first chapter of Fairy Tail, you knew that Natsu's a fire dragon. So the first chapter of Black Clover, you knew about Asa's anti-magic. First chapter of Seven Deadly Sins, you at least knew about Full Counter. And it's just like, this guy, like, it's not a requirement to have the main character, have their power from the start. Like, I know, I think Deku didn't get his until, I think, like, chapter 3. I don't remember the exact number, but I know he didn't have his by the end of chapter 1. Because that was when, the All Might decided to start, like, doing stuff with him. But this guy, like, we didn't really see anything except for some durability feats, which, again, I'm okay with. I'm okay with just that in general. I mean, it doesn't have to happen. This is a sequel, so it doesn't have to have nearly as much attention-grabbing stuff. You don't have to do nearly as much exposition early on. You don't have to do nearly as much kind of just, displaying the characters and the style of the world, because we already know what it is. We already know a lot, like, the premise of, what's going on in Britannia. We know past events. We know how their abilities and whatnot work. And I'm sure there's going to be new stuff, but I don't imagine it's going to be, like, so different that it just feels like, a completely different series. Because this is a continuation, it's a sequel, and not a, like I said, not just a brand new, all on its own series. Like, if this was somewhere else in the Seven Deadly Sins world, that'd be one thing. Because it's like, okay, maybe their magic and whatever their monsters and stuff are completely different, because it'd just be like maybe they developed everything in a different style and standard than what's going on in Britannia. But this is still in Britannia. Like, they mentioned Britannia, obviously King Arthur is involved, and Percival at the end is going to go to I would assume Camelot, and then like try and become a holy knight, because he's even mentioned about being a holy knight in the chapter, because his dad is one and his grandfather was one. But you actually see, like I said, you see a good durability feat. That's one of the ones that was really interesting to show off in the chapter, because his grandfather, Percival's grandfather, like, you have this dude Ironsides, kind of just draw this little slash, like this cross, and it just goes right through the guy. and then just like goes through the rocks and stuff. So this guy's just doing damage. But then after that point, you see first off Percival just trying to fight. Like he grabs a rock, throws it at this dude, keeps moving, grabbing more rocks, bigger and bigger each time. It's obviously not going to do anything because like throwing big rocks at like this degree at Holy Knight isn't going to do anything. We already know like basic low levels of Holy Knights are still decently strong, but I'm like, unless you're like throwing this thing like as fast as a meteor, like this isn't going to do much to this dude. But he ends up doing the slash again, like after he ends up messing up the grandfather more, he just putting all these holes in and making him look like SpongeBob. But he does one of those little cross slashes on Percival, and there's no indication that he just like weakened it. He didn't say, oh, okay, I'll just do 5% or whatever. And you actually see the damage go through the rock behind him, and it looks to be just as powerful. Like it just cleaves right through it, takes the shape, goes through one side, comes out the other, clear cut. You can even see the other side of the rock from the hole. So that, and then looking at the main character and seeing the small level of scratch it has, because actually not even that. You see the large scale of like they call it God's finger, this really tall little plateau, which I really like the design of their base. I thought it was really cool how you had like this downward slope that led to a pool of water that you get water if it'd be from a river, if it's kind of just condensation from the clouds and stuff, and then just kind of pooling up in there. Either way, I really like the design of their base. I thought that was really cool. Actually thinking about it, it really makes me think of some old Minecraft houses that I would have. Like I just really like the idea of having this really nice little cottage like on this super tall up mountainside. I always thought that was really cool. So it bums me out just knowing that we're not going to see this place for a long time. Like even if like the main character ends up coming back to here at some point, it's not going to be for a while, I would assume. But he puts the slash in him, like it doesn't do that much damage to Percival. It does like a cut, but it's not like there's not a visible hole through his body. So that itself was actually like a really surprising durability feat. And I'm wondering if it's because like his grandfather's called Ironsides, if that's going to have any play in like the main character's ability. Like, is he just going to be extremely durable? Because when he goes to punch the guy, like it doesn't do any damage. So it's not like he just has like a compact, super strong body. Maybe it's just that he's durable, or it's like an aspect of his ability that he hasn't mastered yet. Like he's just got one. Like if you say you just have the power, and even though you can't use it at will, or you can't control it, or like really anything along. I just realized that my picture is slightly not fully covering up one corner. But anyway, it's not like in your full control, but at the same time you have it's kind of like using itself indirectly, and it's just kind of like slowly rating out. So it's like even if you're not doing the ability itself, you still have passive enhanced ability just from it existing. But near the end, like the grandfather is like talking about the 4 Knights of the Apocalypse, the 4 Horsemen. Is it called 4 Knights of the Apocalypse? I thought it was 4 Horsemen this whole time. I'm not gonna lie, maybe I should probably check it. I thought it was the 4 Horsemen of the Apocalypse, not 4 Knights, but that makes more sense, to be perfectly honest. I'm glad that I noticed that before I like put the video out, because it would have been really silly if I had it as 4 Horsemen and if it's not 4 Horsemen. But yeah, so I am actually really interested in general in the follow-up for this series. I already like the main character, and I'm not going to sugarcoat like my take on Seven Elite Sins. I like Seven Elite Sins overall. My only problems were near the very end. Like the second half of the last arc is kind of where like my gripes for the series. After the point where male, or I guess at the time he was Esterosa, turned back and he just became fully male from King. That was to me like where the series started to kind of really fumble, because any series is gonna have stuff you don't like, and then there's like difference between a story point that you don't like or like a personal a personal take, like, oh, I didn't like that this character did this, but if it makes sense to the story, it makes sense to the story. It was really, to me, like that second half of the last arc, because it's similar to like what I think about when it comes to like Bleach. Like people will give Bleach like art time, but it's really if you just ignore that the rush chunk in the like near the end of the 1,000-Year Blood War. I mean, it's like there's no real complaints. I mean, like the execution arc is so short,
it doesn't really matter in comparison to, you know, a major arc kind of fumbling a little bit. But at the same time, like I said, like I would have been more upset if there wasn't a continuation, because I like Nakaba's world, I like his overall story, and I like his characters. So it would have been more upsetting just to know that's where it ends. If it ends on a like a bit of a sour note, but I like that he's continuing it. So say like if you have his world as a whole by the end of this, like maybe however many arcs this series have, assuming there's not going to be another continuation after this. But say like you have the full story, it's like okay, you can just look at that one chunk that you don't like as just a part of the story you don't like, instead of the overall story, and you don't have to. It's not gaugeable by its full structure, which I really like. I'm very happy about the knowledge that this was going to get a continuation. But near the end, like his grandfather does die. He takes his helmet, and I'm guessing by the color page, like his grandfather's spirit is going to be visible, because we know that's a thing from when we saw King do it with his or not his grandfather, his friend, when he put on the helmet, and anytime he put it on, he could like, see the dude's spirit. But even then, like the whole stuff about his dad being a that guy Ironsides was really weird, because it makes you wonder like why did he not kill the kid if he was so open to kill his own son, why didn't he finish the job? Or there's a lot of mysteries already set, like why is this guy like why did this guy come to kill his own father and whatnot, and on top of that, like why is he apparently turning against Arthur? There's so many questions just to see that's being laid out for the upcoming parts of the story. So following that, like he ends up like taking his helmet, like I said, taking his cloak. I wonder if he took his sword, because his sword was mentioned in this chapter as like it was a gift from His Majesty that uh that was I would assume so close to a sacred treasure, but he's just using it as a kitchen knife. And that makes me wonder, like, is the main character going to take that with him, or is he going to end up have to need his own weapon? I don't think there's been any color pages or any art renditions where he has the sword. Like everyone's seen, obviously, him with the cloak and the helmet on, which I do like. I like his very very lighthearted kid on an adventure design. But I'm curious to know like how he's going to play out in the story, because the fact that he looks way more like a kid than Meliodas. Meliodas really just looked like a short dude when you really look at him, because Meliodas, anytime like, he either took his shirt off or I guess really that's it, because otherwise he just looks like a short dude. But he's like muscular enough, he's built enough that in reality you just think he's just a short buff guy. He's just a short guy. That Percival does look like he's a child, and that's the weird thing. I'm not against like if you have just some like whimsical kid design for him, but I think it'll be a little bit weird to see set out later. Like, is there going to be any point where maybe time skip and he gets more adult like, or what's the deal with that? Just because there's a large gap between Zeldris and Meliodas, again looking young, versus this guy looking like he's like 8. Either way, though, I like the first chapter. I thought it was interesting, and I do want to see like bigger questions that are more set to the overall structure of the world and not just this story. Like what are all the other main characters from Seven Deadly Sins up to? Like what are they? What is their exact position right now? Knowing all this crazy stuff has been going on, why haven't they been doing anything? Like if there's some crazy stuff going on with these knights, like the Knights of the Apocalypse, what's Meliodas doing? What is Meliodas up to that he isn't handling this himself, or Bon, or King, or Merlin, or any of these guys? But anyway, other than that though, comment below. I really do like. I'm gonna follow this. I'm gonna try and do normal reviews for this. I've been really happy to get more Weekly Shonen magazine stuff, because it was for the most part Eden Zero, and if you count Fairy Tail, just because the 100 Years Quest originating from the magazine is still owned by those guys, but it's not a weekly in their magazine. It's a little weird, but I mean, I can still count it. And then this continuation, it makes me happier, because when I was reviewing Seven Deadly Sins, I stopped for a while because I was really annoyed with the series, and then I got mad at one chapter. I was like, I have to rant about it. Came back, and there were still parts after that point I liked. I do really wish that I was reviewing it more when I was in like it was in a better spot, because there were some areas I really liked in the series, and it's just because like I said, it kind of fumbled a lot in the second half of the last arc. But I still like the series overall. I'm still excited for this continuation, and I really want to see just in general how this all plays out and how this all kind of goes. So I am going to be following this. So I'm hoping, it's got a solid story. I think the next chapter is 40 pages. So this is definitely one of those ones I'm guessing with a 70-page first chapter, 40-page second chapter. That's like like Nakaba probably was just had so much he had to split it up, and probably with the 40 pages it'll feel more like a first chapter, or at least more of like the beginning. Because like I said, it is weird that we didn't get like the main character's whatever his power or fighting style is in the first chapter for a battle shonen. It's very rare that that this happens. Like I said, the only one I thought of off the top of my head where that happened was Deku in My Hero. I'm sure there's other examples, but I can't remember just on the spot think of that many off the top of my head. Anyway, other than that, comment below. Thumbs up the video, friend, like, and subscribe. Tell me what your thoughts are about the series. I like the main character's color scheme actually a lot. I always really like Nakaba's colors because he uses this like I don't know whether generally if that's like a pastel or like this water ink color. It just looks really nice. Whoever, if anybody knows like the style of this is of coloring, then just drop it in the comments. Anyway, other than that though, thumbs up the video, friend, like button, subscribe button, and yeah, I appreciate everybody who's already subscribed. Thank you all for listening. Bye.